So hello everyone, I'm Joel Schiller, and tonight I've entitled my message Mountain Movers based on negativity and doubt. So come and explore what the Bible teaches us about dealing with the negative world we live in and the impact it has on our thoughts. So, what is negativity and where does it come from? Are there any ideas? Where does negativity come from and where do we see it in our lives? TV, yep. Yep. Games, music, yep. Yeah. Upbringing, yep. Self-doubt, yep.
Pressure?
Mm.
Peer pressure.
Yep, so all those things you've listed, yeah, definitely, they're all true. So a newspaper as well, social media, lots of that all through that, but as well on TV, so negative news, like you often see ads, it's flu season, have you got your flu jab yet? It's negative. It's potentially causing fear, so fear of you having to, I've got to go and do that sort of thing. So, and it's definitely from upbringing and people you also may associate with. So from time to time, this is something I've struggled with, and I've been focusing on the worldly things rather than God and what He provides to us. So let's have a look at Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So I feel like that sort of sums all that stuff up that we just listed. There is evil forces around. So last time I spoke about the hardness of heart. So last year, I said God is continually talking to us. And Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice. It says that in John 10:27. So what we do is we block things out by closing the gate across our heart and not letting those negative things influence us. So why is it so important to refrain from negativity and doubt? So let's have a look at Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. So if you look back at Genesis 1, God uses words to speak the world into existence. So that just shows how powerful words are. So let there be light, and light was. So those who speak negatively or speak death through what they say, they will often see those things happen. For example, you wake up on a Monday morning and say, today's going to be a bad day. You're likely going to see that result. So Ephesians 5:4, let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. So giving thanks and praise for all that God has done. For example, I often walk in the gully behind our house and thank God for all He's created, all the trees, all the creeks, and all the wonderful wildlife He has created. James 1:6, but let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. So if we believe what we ask, we will see it come into existence. So if we believe that we will receive healing for a broken arm or sore back, it will come into existence only if you believe it, without any doubting. So, what are some examples from the Bible and elsewhere? So, Peter walking on water in Matthew 14, verse 25 to 33. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. So picture yourself in this situation. You're in a boat, waves crashing, wind blowing a gale around you. And then you see this figure walking on the water. Would you be afraid in that instance, do you think? So why did Jesus say, take courage? Why did he say, don't be afraid? Well, we see people saying, don't be afraid elsewhere in the Bible. So you look at the angel who appeared to Mary, don't be afraid. And it is often, or in this instance, it's Jesus saying, well, sort of calm down, but also changing the spiritual atmosphere around him. So making it a positive rather than a negative. So let's continue. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Come being an action step, action of faith. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly you are the Son of God. Matthew 14:25-33. So we're now going to have a look at another clip and then compare the two. So a clip from the shack.
Mac, it's okay.
Why are you doing this to me?
This isn't me.
You told me to come out here.
Mac, this is happening inside you. You're letting it consume you and you don't have to. Just take a deep breath and listen to my voice.
Don't look at it, Mac. Look here.
Don't think about the past. Don't think about the pain. Look at me. Everything is gonna be okay. Look at me. Trust me, none of this can hurt you. Just keep your eyes on me. Breathe. Good, Mac. I'm not going anywhere.
So if you look at that example and you look at Peter walking on water. So Peter doubted and looked at the things around him, the wind and the waves, and that limited what he could do, limited him walking on the water. And that's when he started to sink. So if you look at that example from the shack, Mac thought about his past, thought about all that had happened, and he doubted what God could do, and those things were dragging him down, and therefore he was starting to sink. So God's power was able to work through Peter and work through Mac when he looked at Jesus for who he was, and therefore restored the situation completely. So doubting restricts us hearing from God. So I've got my little remote control car here. So if we have the aerial down, aerial being receiving from God, if we're not expecting to receive from God, we have it down, well, we can't control the car at all. Turning on my health. Trying to control it, we can't. But once we have the aerial up, then we are able to receive, and therefore receive the signal going from the antenna to the remote control car. So we need to be open to what God is saying to us and be open to what his word says, and therefore receive it and see it put into action in our lives. So what can we do to overcome negativity? Well, let's have a look at John 10:10. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I've come to give you life, Jesus, and that they may have it more abundantly. So this is a great verse. It presents the two sides, so Jesus and the thief. And it helps us to understand where the bad things may come from in our life. So the evil one is trying to attack us and put us off course, whereas God wants us to go in a certain direction to bring all the glory to him. So the evil one is putting doubts in our minds, trying to throw us off course. So let's have a look at this a little closer. So there's three different types of thoughts. So there's God's thoughts, coming from God. This can come through dreams, but also words of knowledge straight from God. Our own thoughts, or our own perceptions and things, as well as demonic thoughts, potentially anger or those sorts of things. So we need to remember that we are in a fallen world, and we encounter lots of negative stuff, demonic stuff, which try to create fear. So we've got to put up a barrier to try to resist that and use our authority that God has given us. So Ephesians 6:13-18, therefore put on the full armour of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything, to stand. Stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation. Helmet of salvation being a helmet, putting on our head and blocking out those evil thoughts that the devil tries to put in our minds, and keeping our thoughts focused on what God is saying to us. So the devil has had some practice over many years, and knows our weaknesses in our lives. So we've got to put on our helmet of salvation to protect those weak areas. So Mark 11, so this is where my title for the message comes from. So Mark 11:12-14, 20-25. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say it. In the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." So for many years, I struggled over the whole concept of the mountain. I actually thought the mountain meant a physical mountain. This may be true, but I didn't make the connection with mountains in my own life. Mountains being struggles, being negativity, being doubt, being any struggle to get healing. But we can, if we don't doubt, we can cast it out and see healing occur. So if I try to focus on these as being promises of God, I could see that God does not lie. So what do you think we need to do? Well, we need to believe and not doubt what we're saying. Because if we don't doubt, well, then we can see mountains removed and cast out into the sea. So 1 Peter 5:7, cast all your care upon him, for he cares for you. So Jesus, or God, is there for us to throw our worries of life, pressure, all those things over to him. For example, in my life, I've given multiple presentations at uni, and right before them, I felt quite nervous, and when I've tried to give that over, I felt like I've just ended up back with it. But it's important that I be careful with what I say, because there's one instance that I have said I am nervous on the inside, even though I don't look it, and then in the presentation I turned out to mutter, and the message didn't come across very clearly. So that's what I learnt from that instance. So what happens when negativity is overcome? Ephesians 3:20. Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. So we are the ones who can restrict how much God can do in our lives. So if we think God can only do so much, well then he's probably only going to do that much. But if we believe beyond, more than we could ask or imagine, well then God will do those things. So 2 Peter 1:2-4, grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus our Lord, as his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us by glory and virtue, by which have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, that through these you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. So we can do exactly what Jesus did, as long as we tune out of what the world is saying, tune out of conforming to the world and its patterns, and tune into what the Word says, what God is saying, and what God is saying to us. So here's another clip. Whether doubting whether the door is open or not. So I don't know if you've seen this before, but the dog thinks the door is closed, when in fact the door is not closed and it is right open. So the owner is giving the dog permission to come in and receive the incentive that is being put right on the ground in front of the dog. But the dog has doubt. He thought the door was closed. So we sometimes doubt what God has promised to us, and the devil may be whispering incorrect thoughts into our minds. We sometimes think we are not worthy to enter, but the door is right there. God has given us access to spiritual gifts, speaking in tongues, healings, all of these things. They are right there in front of us, but all we've got to do is take them. Take them and put work into it and see them come to fruition in our lives. So Jesus is a gentleman. He won't force himself upon us. But he says, if you believe, you will cast out demons and lay hands upon the sick and see them healed. So tonight we all have the opportunity to overcome potentially our doubt and receive all the promises that God has for us through a time of ministry. So just before we go into that, I'll pray and then will split off into two groups. Dear Lord, thank you for your message, and thank you for Peter and the message that we can learn through Peter walking on water. And we just pray that we can move the mountains that may be in our lives and see healing occur. In your name we pray. Amen.